has worked as a chiropractor for 15 years, and then he decided to enter the world of education full-time. He opened and taught in and administered a private school for 3 years. He's in his 4th year of teaching in a charter school now. And he serves on the board of a new charter school in the Rose Park area, is an educational consultant for a private school working in teacher development and curriculum, and he's going to be addressing us on agency-based education in a public school.
Thank you.
Thanks. Drop that in the pocket.
Okay. Well, last year, a senior capstone student of mine, her name is Makenzie, decided that recycling was important. She designed a web page. She got on the agenda of her city council, presented her ideas, and displayed the likely results, the costs, yeah, will you get that going? The costs of the program, the cost to the city. And after all this, she was rejected. But that was okay, because it was a great education. Education is certainly, if you look at the slide here for just a second, to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded, and that's Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I think education is a wonderful social condition that needs a little bit of redeeming, and I have been inspired by being here today. I often talk about statesmanship in my classes, and I ask my classes, what is a statesman? We've seen multiple statesmen today. Senator Osmond, Mr. Stoddard, Audrey over here, all statesmen in their respective spheres, and it's exciting for me to see them. So, what is a statesman? A statesman is a person who sees the world as it is, sees the world as it should be, and inserts themselves in between to make it a positive and principled change that we just learned about just a minute ago. Statesmen are exciting, and statesmen are creators and producers. We need them, and we need them in every field. And sometimes when I'm teaching, for instance, what I taught biology, and I start talking about statesmanship, the students look at me and wonder if they've landed in the right class. But we need biologists, statesmen, okay? We need them in every area. And so we talk about all kinds of neat philosophy like that. I always tell my students that I love my content area. Right now, one of the classes I teach is AP US Government. I love government. I love leadership and biology and the classics. But I teach because I want them to become great human beings. That's my first priority. I help motivate and build individuals full of character and integrity who are willing to submit to a higher power and follow their life passions, and who will build a great family and community and preserve liberty and the freedom to choose. That's what's exciting. And I tell them that right up front, because if they learn that there's free branches of government, that's wonderful. But if they learn to become great human beings, that's what really creates the differences in the world. On a number of things I give out to my students, I put this inscription at the bottom: I am my thoughts, my words, my actions. I am free to choose. I am free to learn. And then I'm sure many of you have read Gatto. When you take the free will out of education, that turns it into schooling. We don't want to do schooling. We want to do education. I've had the awesome opportunity of doing lots of different type of education. I've sent my kids to public school. I've spent many, many years doing homeschool. I started and ran a private school, and now I'm working in a charter school. And I've found wonderful things in all of those areas, but we have to have great education and great teaching wherever we're educating our children. So, How do we do agency-based education in a public charter school? One thing that I truly believe is true, sorry for the redundancy, is that there's flexibility in the classroom. Teachers, take off wherever you are and do the right thing. Create raving fans. Teach so you're unstoppable. If there's a board or an administrator who kind of wants to fit you into this Common Core, whatever it may be, whatever the season may be, if you teach greatly, you're going to be unstoppable. Nobody can stop a great teacher, and your results are always going to be better than the minimum. In my school, because we have to take tests, we have to take CRTs, we're going to be taking the new testing for next year. It's just inevitable, it's there. But we consider those things to be the minimum. So when we talk about Common Core, we say Core Plus, okay? To us, it's there. We're going to go way past it. And that's how I teach in my classroom. Exceed any district, state, or federal requirement in the individual classroom. Be transformational as a teacher. If you're not a teacher, then be the consumer who's requiring a transformational education from the people who are educating your children. And I threw this in here at the last minute. Don't be scared of religion. This is what brought it to my mind. My students were doing a book report on classics, on a classic that they had recently read. And I gave them an outline of what I wanted them to cover in their book report. And one student had done one of C.S. Lewis's books that had Aslan in the book. And she didn't, she alluded to but didn't say who she thought Aslan represented. And I asked her after class, I said, why didn't you just write it down? She's like, well, I thought I couldn't talk about religion in school. It's not true. We just can't teach religion in school. But we have these students who have a decade plus sometimes of religious training and information in their minds. We don't want them to lift their brain up and scoop that out and put it on the front porch of the school and then come in and forget all of it. It happens too often. It needs to stay in there. The discussion can be robust and exciting. So don't be scared of religion. Let the students bring all of their brains to class and learning. Okay, where is one of the biggest crises in education? By the way, I did some research on plurals of crisis and crises and multiple spellings. It was quite exciting. It was part of my education, okay? Anyway, crises is one way of the pluralized crisis. It's not in the students. The crisis in education is not in the students. It may be in some of the families where sons and daughters are taught to be teenagers, which is sad, and not young men and young women. Teachers should be reinforcing or enforcing great parenting in the schools, not fighting poor parenting, but that's okay. We'll do it if we have to. The fact of the matter is sometimes there's not great parenting at home, so we do what we can in the schools. The biggest crisis in education is bad teaching. So can I read that one more time? The biggest crisis in education is bad teaching. Now, hearing from Senator Osmond, who inspired me like crazy, that's not the fight I'm fighting right now. He's the man. I'm going to do everything I can to support him. But my message is about teachers today, like this master teacher we heard from here just a minute ago. And if we don't have great teaching, then we have lost the battle. The biggest crisis is bad teaching. I have to be constantly checking myself to make sure I'm a great teacher. And it's not easy being a transformational teacher. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of emotional energy, and it takes a lot of planning. Okay. My slide, there we go. Okay, so you probably recognize the story that you see before your eyes here, Alice in Wonderland. She's chasing the rabbit. She runs into the Cheshire Cat. Alice says, I wonder which way I ought to go. And the Cheshire Cat answers, well, that depends on where you want to get to. And teachers, wherever you're teaching, you have to decide where you want to get to. Are you going to be mediocre, or are you going to be one of the great teachers? And if you're going to be a great teacher, there's a certain road that you have to follow. And we're going to talk about great teaching. All right, starts in the heart of the teacher. Teachers need to know why they teach and have a clear vision of what they are trying to accomplish. Then they'll be open to the how of transformational teaching and become innovators. I think we just have to sometimes, at this point, and sometimes I have to do this on a daily basis, just kind of take a deep breath. And as we go into the day, think, why am I here? What am I trying to accomplish? What are we really trying to get at? And stop and pause and listen and think. And it'll be amazing what will come. But it's not for content. The best teachers teach from the heart. All education is self-education. I had to throw it in there. LAmour, if the student isn't inspired and asking questions, it's going to be very difficult to get anywhere. I put all kinds of quotes on this slide. Most of them you can see were from my daughter, Jessica Meeks, who is a student, and she was a student of mine in my AP government class last year. She's 15 years old, and she has all kinds of opinions about education. And I was showing her this slideshow, and I started typing in her little thoughts that she had. But have you stopped to think, teachers, that maybe you need to ask your students how to be a good teacher? Or ask your students what they need? Because, boy, they are full of opinions. And some of you sitting right here now, we're going into, I think, our 4th hour. I feel really bad for them. Because sitting for 8 hours and 50-minute sound bite segments is really painful. And they have a lot of opinions about education and how to make education better. So we need to stop and ask them questions. LAmour left school when he was about 14 years of age because school was getting in the way of his education. My goal is to make sure my class at least doesn't get in the way of my students' education. Okay, when we are shut up in schools and college recitation rooms for 10 or 15 years and come out at last with a belly full of words and do not know a thing, that's what we're trying to avoid. That's Emerson again. All right, why do I go to work as a teacher? To make, thank you, whoever laughed loudly. Okay, to make sure my students learn my subject content material, okay? All right, I'll cover that up as fast as I can. That's not why we're there, because quite frankly, that is boring, okay? I've got to read a letter from a student that I got after she had been in a few of my classes. Sir Meeks, that's what she called me, I don't know why, but I liked it. I just wanted to take some time to tell you how much of an influence you have been in my high school experience, and thank you for the wonderful years I've had in your classes. Firstly, thank you for truly caring about the education the education I got, and the attributes and values I learned in your classes. Okay, I'm already getting excited because she didn't say anything about content yet. Thank you for the attributes and values I learned in your classes. I always knew that no matter the day, whenever I came into your classroom, we would be doing something that would better me as a person. Not that we, thank you, okay. Not that we would be learning, anyway, okay. I learned so much about life in your class. Oh, and also about the government stuff, which is as it should be, because I told them if I ask them a question somewhere in their life and they say, what did you learn in government? And you say that there are 3 branches, they're in big trouble, okay? Thank you for encouraging me to rise above senioritis and any other excuses that kept me from rising to my full potential. So many days when I just wanted to float along with everyone else and do the minimum amount of work, your smiling, stern face would remind me to snap out of it and get to work. It really touched me how much of yourself you put into your classes and students. Thanks for always smiling and joking around, brightening my day. I always love to see you and shake your hands. Thanks for the wonderful years of government, capstone, mentoring, but more importantly, the years of education. That's exciting. So when I read that letter, and it's interesting, it was put away somewhere in my house, and when I started preparing this this presentation, it floated to the top. I don't know. It was really actually quite cool. Okay, so why do I go to work? So my students will become great human beings. I tell them, no pressure. I only expect that you will change the world. And on the back of my classroom, I put up a bunch of 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper with pictures of different great people on them, and I said something very mundane about each one of them. Boring stuff, like they got up in the morning and ate breakfast. I can't remember, just silly things. It was epiphany I had one night. And they look at those, and it's kind of funny because we see somebody like Mother Teresa, and the fact of the matter is she did get up and eat breakfast in the morning, okay? But when she saw someone suffering on the street, she stopped and helped them. Somewhere along the way, they decided to take action in their life and make a change. And each one of us can be the type of person that does that. I've got to read this here. This is from a book report, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. Again, from this assignment where they pick whatever classic they want to. I'm not going to pick their classic for them. They pick a classic that they're excited about, that they feel is a classic, and they read it, and they report on it. And I hand out a format of what I want them to do, but I say this is the minimum. And this kid ended up writing quite a neat essay beyond the format that I had given him. But he said, courage is when you do something that puts yourself at risk for the benefit of others. And this Yankee did just that. He taught people how to live, not how to believe in what preachers taught them, to guess and create, not to fall for the lies of what was right and wrong. He tried as best as he could to risk his own life for the benefit of others, even though he knew the consequences. You get it? He's getting it, right? And if he failed in his attempts to bring a powerful nation out of darkness of superstition and lies, he, in a way, tried to get his country out of Yalwuna. Yalwuna is a word I've taught them. It's an Arabic word that means twister of the truth. And so we talk about getting out of the land of Yalwuna, the description for living in superstition. He said, applying our knowledge is what knowledge is for. There's no point in learning something that doesn't gain you a skill, trait, or ability to do something great or amazing. Application is the key to making the world a better place. Remember Emerson's quote, a belly full of words and not knowing how to do anything? That's a tragedy. Okay, I'm going to stop on that, but he goes on and says a lot of wonderful things. Okay, what do I help my students learn? Why do I go to work? Which way should I go? Now, before I start reading these things, if you look here, if you walk into my room, there's no clock, okay? Because we're in a flawed system, right? We have 50 minutes, and then there's a bell, and we interrupt their thoughts, and we send them to another class. And the last thing I want to do, whoever put the school together mounted the clocks right on top of the chalkboard. I don't know what they were smoking when they did that, but anyway, when I walked into the room, I saw that. First thing I did is I took the clock down, and I put a poster over the scar on the wall there that says, think. And a student the other day was saying, you wouldn't believe how many times I've looked at that poster. I'm like, well, have you started to think, okay? But I'll put the clock up if I'm giving them a time test or something. I set it on the chalkboard. No clocks, okay? Because we want them to focus. The thing I love best is when the bell rings and they're like, oh, or they're like, oh my heavens, I can't believe how fast that went, okay? That's what we're looking for. All right, so why do I go to work? To help them to understand. By the way, I feel kind of crazy sometimes. I did this whole education. I became a doctor of chiropractic. I ran a business for years, and something was always gnawing at my insides. So I was teaching Constitution classes in the community, and I was doing some political stuff, and I was And I was always out teaching. And then I opened a private school. And I'm like, what am I doing? So finally, the universe, God, forced me out of it, and I just jumped in with 2 feet into education. That's why I'm here today, but I'm excited about it. So why do I go to work? Help them understand they have a unique mission and purpose, and help them discover it. How to think independently and creatively. How to create personal value systems based on fundamental, foundational, time-honored principles. Am I doing okay, Audrey? Okay, she gave me the thumbs up. Okay, how to look to their families and core books to find truth and to compare the information they receive, study, and learn and are exposed to at school and other places to those things. I encourage them to go back home because they've got these wonderful principles and value systems that they've been learning, and sometimes what you hear in school isn't always right. So we want to go back and identify their core book, and we talk about that. It's weird, even in biology, if I'm teaching something like that, in government especially. How to innovate and solve problems, how to have courage and act. Okay. By the way, I asked Jessica to do the transitions for my slides, okay? So she's like, Dad, you're going to love this. All right. So, so I hope you're enjoying it. Okay. Okay, what do I help my students learn? I'm on the same question. How to be organized, how to listen to their moral compass, their inner light, their celestial fires. You can see some John Adams and Thomas Jefferson up there. To ask questions and temper research with their core books. To not stop until the job is done excellently. To follow their passions. Teach them about delayed gratification. To be positively discontent. We don't want them to settle for even the good. We want them to move to the great and to join the great debate. Those of you, I love Star Trek, The Next Generation especially. This is Captain Picard. He is the man, okay? And he says whenever they're on another adventure, he says, engage, okay? So I want my students to engage, and that's exciting. I got to tell you this about engaging. Because we spend these years teaching our children, and I'm doing a unique thing right now. I teach what's called a senior capstone class, and a capstone being the pinnacle. After all this thing is built, it's the thing that's on top, and they're supposed to do something amazing that shows the years of their education and their learning. So these seniors come into the class, and the first day, I say, and it's weird, I say, you can do whatever you want to do in this class. Isn't that exciting? And the problem is, the tragedy is to a lot of them, it's not exciting. It's scary. It's too hard. They have lost their creativity and their imagination. And so it's a process of getting them to wake up their potential again and choose a project. It's neat and it's important, but it's hard. It shouldn't be that way. Because if we'd been doing education the right way, Mr. Stoddard, all the way along using the Great Brain Project, they would have jumped into a class today like that and said, hallelujah, it's about time. But instead they get a little bit scared. But we're helping them get over it. Okay. 25 critical skills that are seldom taught, tested, or graded in schools. And this is Clark Aldrich, and he wrote the book Unschooling Rules. This is chapter 4. If you haven't read the book, you'll love it. It's easy to read. It's written in small sections with a lot of different topics, and it's full of all kinds of neat information. I love this chapter. So what do we need to teach, test, and grade in school? Adapting, analyzing and managing risk, applying economic value and governing models, behaving ethically, being a leader, building and nurturing relationships, communicating, creating or process re-engineering new actions, process, and tools. Do any of you have this in your syllabi? Okay, well, you should have it. Yeah, okay, well, I've got some head shaking, okay? That's wonderful. Okay, developing security, efficiently meeting complex needs, gathering evidence, identifying and using boards and advisors, maintaining and practicing stewardship and important systems and capabilities, making prudent decisions, managing conflict, managing projects. One more. negotiating, planning long-term, prioritizing tasks and goals, probing, procurement, scheduling, solving problems innovatively, sourcing, buying, procuring goods and services, and using containment strategies, stopping bad ideas, okay? That's the idea of that last one. What do you think? Those are the things we need to be testing in school. Now, there's no multiple choice test that tests that. It's not available. They have to go out and do stuff. They have to do projects. They have to get outside the classroom. They need mentoring to get through this. How do we as teachers help our students learn critical skills? So back to the 25 things that you have in the handout, how do we help them learn those things? Well, even though this looks cute, you see it says knowledge up there, pointed into their heads. Wouldn't that be neat if it was so, okay? But it's not. I've seen some Star Trek episodes where it is, but not in real life, okay? Usually it's, sorry, mind closed until further notice. That's often what we get. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen who are doing homeschooling, it's still what you get, okay? Sometimes you just have to find the way to break through this. If this is what's happening, we're doing something wrong. Even though we may think we're doing something right, if this is what our kids at home or in a co-op or in a private or public school look like, we're doing something wrong. So we have to keep on asking ourselves questions. What do I do to break through? Don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. So we want their brains exploding with excitement. So how do we get students to learn critical skills? So this is what I'm trying to do in my classes. So the teacher needs to help the student reveal mission and purpose that's unique to them. If they don't have a sense that they're supposed to do something in life, then it's really hard to get them to do anything. They may not know when it happens. I feel like I'm starting to figure it out, okay? And I'm not 50 years old when my students ask me how old I am. All I can say is I'm not 50 years old, okay? So you can figure out how old I am. But I feel like at not 50 years old, I'm starting to get an idea of what my mission and purpose is. As a teacher, we're supposed to create the environment, master discipline and classroom management. Whew, it's an ongoing battle. Constantly improve their teaching skills. That's me. Constantly getting better as a teacher. Listening to student feedback. They're our client. We need to listen to them. Regularly, I have my students write about what I need to do, what we need to do as a school, whatever it is, to get better. And I accumulate that stuff and I write it down. And it's amazing the insights they have. By the way, one of the things that comes up over and over and over again in my school is 2-hour classes. They hate 50-minute classes. They inherently know something's wrong with getting interrupted every 50 minutes. Just when you really start to get to the heart of the matter, you have to change subjects. And so without trying to get them to say it, they say it on their own. Constantly study and expand my knowledge of my material that I'm teaching. Teach time management, teach goal setting. Okay, pickles. I'm bored. Bored, there's no reason to be bored. Dorothy Parker said the cure for boredom is curiosity. There's no cure for curiosity. Who's Dorothy Parker? Boom. We got him. Okay, he asked a question. There you go. See, I just cured your boredom. Now we have to now we have to get him to act, right? He's got to go look up Dorothy Parker, but as soon as he asks the question, that's the hook. Okay, we need to get our students to ask questions. How do we get students to learn critical skills? In the classroom. So now we talked about the teacher a little bit. In the classroom, have the students memorize and recite in front of the class. Oh, the pain that comes from doing a memorization, okay, and reciting it in front of class. We want to keep them on the edge and keep them uncomfortable. They need to teach the class, do special presentations and projects, invite, secure, greet, and introduce speakers, some of those laws of diplomacy, job shadow. In fact, last year, and I'm going to do it again this year, I clean out half the school, half the 8th graders, half the 12th graders, that's not half the school, and send them on their way for a full day to job shadow. their parents or somebody else. It's amazing how many kids don't know what y'all do for a profession, okay? Moms or dads, whatever it might be. So go home and talk to them about it. But we get them to job shadow. We get them to write and rewrite and annotate. Love annotation. And no matter what age they are, they can improve their annotating skills. It's where you really get into the conversation with the authors. And this kid looks a little distressed, doesn't he? That's why I picked the picture. Embrace the mental sweat. You're supposed to be in pain when you're learning sometimes. It's supposed to hurt. So encourage your kids to go through the pain of learning. It's joyful, but sometimes it's a little bit painful. Okay, how do we get students to learn critical skills? We're still on that question. Give speeches, plan and execute events, start businesses, apply topics to current events, get a job or internship, mentor each other, participate in competitions, model UN competitions, speech contests, debate, mock trial, sports, music, dancing, whatever. Do stuff, think, ask questions, actively solve real-world problems. Some of those of you who are teachers in the classroom, I promise it's possible to do this. Your classroom experience is going to change. The way you teach is going to be different. It's going to be harder, but it's going to be way more fun. If you go back and read and reread that list, if you want something to do in a class one day, just go back to the list and say, well, which one of these things do I need to be doing? And do it. Plan and execute an event. Have them give a speech. Everybody in every one of my classes gives a speech at least once a semester. The younger students, 3 to 5 minutes. The older students, 5 to 7 minutes. Okay? For the debaters, it's not a problem. Okay? But those kids who aren't doing that all the time, 5 to 7 minute speech. The reason I do that is because it's harder than a 3-minute speech. You can almost fake a 3-minute speech. But if you've got 5 to 7 minutes, you actually have to get some content and some meat. Otherwise, you die in front of your audience. Okay. So the ideal school, I just started writing some stuff down. If we get rid of this, how many hours? 990 hours, 180 days in the seat. If we get rid of this and start thinking outside of the box and being innovative, even in our charter schools and public schools, here we go, a foundation curriculum of classics, new and old. Sometimes we forget the new classics. All kinds of good stuff coming out all the time. Stay strong in, or a strong foundation in reading, writing, math, speech, the arts, foreign language, health and physical education, steeped in practical education, application. Remember, if it's not practically applied, it's dead. Okay? You can make everything come alive. In fact, that's the project that we're going to be doing this next week. I gave them an assignment in class, present a project. Topic, make the Constitution come alive. Well, what do? I don't know. Make the Constitution come alive. Well, can we? I don't know. Make the Constitution come alive, okay? And it's been amazing to see the things that they can come up with once the shackles are off and they start thinking creatively. Okay, student choice of a number of different subjects. There's stuff we want them to learn. We know that. We're older than them. They need to study certain things. They have to trust us as mentors, but there's stuff they need to learn, that they need to choose. So they need to find outside mentors, personalize the curriculum. Much of the learning based in projects application and current events. 2-hour classes. Students can move as fast as they want. Okay, we had elements in a number of presentations today. Half a day in school. We only want them for about 4 hours. Okay, after that, they've probably about had it. We need to get them applying and working on projects after that. They can stay all day long if they wanted to. If this is a public school or a private school, they can stay and be mentored, but not sitting in classes. Travel, adventure, and serve. Schools can easily, in my perfect world, schools can easily get rid of students who don't contribute to the learning culture. Sometimes, and all of you who have taught in a classroom, You have students who sabotage you day after day after day. My perfect world, we want to either figure out how to bring that person along or we want to stop the sabotage. And then the most important position, which I just don't see very many schools ever doing this, is the teacher of the teachers. And that teachers are required to constantly improve and become master teachers. It's one of the most frustrating things to me that in so many schools we miss that position. The guy or the gal who constantly teaches the teachers to be better teachers, because it's a lifelong journey, and all too often we miss it. Okay. I'm not afraid of storms, for I'm learning to sell my ship. Get the students excited for the storms because they're learning to sell their ship. And this is what I say almost every day to almost every class. Go forth and conquer. Thank you. Okay, looks like we have a couple minutes for some questions if you want. Yes, ma'am.
One thing I think you would really like, I'm a teacher in an elementary school, and I initiated this last year at my school, and we're going to continue it, is rather than doing a spelling bee where you get a whole list of words and you have to memorize the individual letters to form the words, we've started doing a quotational bee where they're given a whole list of famous, life-changing quotations, and they have to memorize those quotes. In a competition, they're given the very first part of the quote, then they have to go back and repeat the whole thing. It's a marvelous, marvelous thing that we started at our school.
Very innovative. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, those ideas should keep you up at night, right? Yes.
I was just going to add to what this gentleman said about not stifling the creativity of the younger children. There's a book, I don't know who the author was, it's called Push Back the Desks. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it was a teacher that works with younger elementary kids and said that the peak of creativity is in the 3rd grade, and that you never reach that pinnacle or that peak again. It goes from a young child up to about the 3rd grade, and so anyway, it's worth the read. It's really a wonderful book about teaching that younger group and not stifling.
Say the title one more time.
It's called Push Back the Desk.
Push back the desks. Okay. You know what I do often in my class, and it drives some of the students crazy, but I rearrange the desks almost on a daily basis. And so they just walk in, and it's something new and different. It keeps them off guard. When I put them in rows, that's unique too, okay? Because often they're not in rows. I'll bunch them up, I'll do circles, we want them to keep thinking, yes.
What are core books?
Core books. Where do they go to find truth? So for some people, it could be the Bible, it could be the Bhagavad Gita, it could be the Analects of Confucius, it could be the Book of Mormon. It's where they go to find truth, where they take what they've learned, the principles that they're studying, and go back and say, well, this matches or it doesn't. So we need to have a conversation. And I teach epistemologies in all my classes. I teach 6 major epistemologies because it's important for the students to understand how they know something is true. And so we have that conversation.
Explain that.
Epistemology. Epistemology could be revelation. It could be God told me, reason, I thought it out. It was logical, it flowed. Aestheticism, it's beautiful, it has symmetry. The scientific method. It could be pragmatism, which, I kind of give my opinion on that one. It's like I really don't like the pragmatic approach because it takes us away from principles. So, and there's more than that, but we do 6 major ones. Historicism is another one. We look at the cycles in history and we can learn from those things. Okay, yes, ma'am.
How would you define classics, especially if you bring the new classics?
Something you can go to over and over again and continue to learn, and something that teaches truths and values that, we could talk for an hour about classics, but yeah. So they're often time-honored books that keep showing up on lists. Yeah. You know, I'm reading David and Goliath right now by Malcolm Gladwell. I think it's going to be a classic. It's a classic to me. I'm going to be able to read it multiple times. Teach the Children by Neil Flinders, which it's just interesting. When Oak and I started talking and I was invited to do this, I had read Teach the Children a decade ago, and I picked it back up off the shelf. I had annotated it a lot, and so I got to lose, a week of sleep. I was up all night rereading Teach the Children, but it didn't take me as long because I had annotated it. But I learned more the second time than the first time. So, okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. Oh, yeah.